The flop. To many basketball fans, it's one of the most disgusting, vile, and disgraceful displays of unsportsmanlike conduct that we can witness on a frequent basis. Yet we can't deny its competitive advantage and how some have perfected it down to an art form. For those of you who don't know, a flop is basically defined as this. It's when a player makes an intentional fall or stagger after little to no physical contact by an opposing player in order to draw a foul call by an official against the opponent. By nature, it is extremely deceitful and requires plenty of dramatized acting in order to convince the official to blow the whistle. With that being said, some players are better actors than others, and some are incredibly crafty at finding creative ways to draw the foul. Some of these modern players are guys like Chris Paul, LeBron James, Marcus Smart, and of course James Harden, just to name a few. Just a quick history lesson, although flopping is more prevalent now than ever before, it's not a new phenomenon by any means. In fact, flopping in the game of basketball goes as far back as the 1960s, as former Boston Celtic and a 7-time NBA champion Frank Ramsey made it a regular part of his game. It was something he personally admitted to as he spoke about his flopping tendencies from an article in Sports Illustrated that was published in 1963. Not only was Ramsey referred to as the master of deception, but he talked about how he was often booed and heckled by the fans for his obvious acting. Given the fact that Ramsey wasn't really a superstar, and given the fact that he played basketball in the 1960s, unfortunately, there is very little footage available displaying his flopping tendencies. Although it would be nearly impossible to claim who was the first player to attempt the flop, I think it's fair to say that Ramsey was certainly one of the first floppers of NBA history. Like I said before, there wasn't a ton of flopping on a widespread level throughout the league during that era. The 70s and 80s were extremely physical decades of the NBA, and the general mentality of the players was much more focused on presenting a tougher image. Not every player shared that mindset though, as some players weren't shy about selling a bit of their integrity for the sake of a blown whistle. If you ask my personal opinion, and the opinion of many viewers who were old enough to witness this, the player who flopped more than any other, and frankly the player who made flopping famous among basketball fans, was none other than the Serbian Vlade Divac. Vlade had a 16-year career in the NBA from 1989 to 2005 and was actually inducted to the Basketball Hall of Fame. He averaged nearly 12 points and 8 rebounds over the course of his career and was selected to one All-Star team in 2001. Vlade was obviously a solid center and was actually the player who was traded to the Charlotte Hornets for a rookie Kobe Bryant in 1996. But back when he played, what Vlade was known for more than anything else was his dramatic flopping theatrics. He was so notorious for this that I believe he was the main person who gave European basketball players their stereotype of being soft athletes. It's a stereotype that isn't very prevalent in today's game, but back in the 90s, it was an extremely common perception. Given his massive size, Vlade's consistent flopping appeared even more absurd than most other players, considering how it shouldn't be that easy to topple him over. He may have not been the first player to flop in the NBA, but in my opinion, Vlade is the player who made flopping a famous and well-known maneuver to the basketball world. As time went on, flopping became only more relevant and widespread throughout the entire league, and now it's at a point where more players flop than those who don't. The league made a feeble attempt to diminish the amount of flopping in 2012 when it introduced the no flopping rule. The rule stated that any player who flops during the regular season would first be warned, followed by fines in increments of $5,000 for each successful flop during the season. Longtime basketball fans, like myself, rejoiced when this rule was initially introduced, as we assumed this would finally be the change that would eliminate this pathetic acting out of the league. Well, unfortunately, the rule has since been painfully under-enforced since its establishment. Between 2012 and the summer of 2023, there have been thousands of flops, yet there has only been a grand total of 31 fines handed out to the players during the regular season. Notorious floppers like LeBron James and Chris Paul have never been fined during the regular season, and arguably today's greatest modern flopper, James Harden, has been fined only once. Obviously, with the lack of significant and consistent consequences, flopping has remained a staple element within the league, which ultimately affects the popularity and even the integrity of the game. But now there's more to this story, as the league office just recently added another chapter to this flopping saga. You see, prior to the beginning of this current 2023 to 2024 season, the league established a new flopping rule intended to be even harsher and more effective than the previous rule. The fine penalties were now decreased from $5,000 to just $2,000, which would increase incrementally. But it was a different kind of consequence that caught everyone's attention. From the summer of 2023 forward, a flop would now result in a non-unsportsmanlike technical foul, which would result in a free throw for the opposing team. This was a massive deal because for the first time in NBA history, flopping violations would result in immediate points for the opposing team. This is the level of consequences that I was originally hoping for. But still, my optimism was held in check. Because at the end of the day, the refs still had to enforce the rule for this to mean anything. Well, we're now approaching mid-January, and we're several months into the NBA season, and I'm thrilled to report some excellent news. In the 2023 to 2024 season so far, there have been a grand total of 19 fines given to the players for flopping. On 3 separate occasions, multiple players were fined on the same day. It's pretty clear that stars are not getting special treatment either, since MVP candidates like Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic are among the players who have been fined. And again, these are also technical fouls that are scoring points for the opposing teams, which is one of the biggest deterrents to flopping that I can possibly think of. So again, to recap, in the first 11 seasons of the original flopping rule, there was 31 fines. And now, in less than one half of this current season, there have been 19 fines/technical fouls. I gotta say, I would still like to see the frequency of this penalties increase, considering how I've seen a lot of flops this year that didn't get fined. But make no mistake, the league took a massive step forward this season. And give credit where credit is due. Shout out to Adam Silver and the league office for making a legitimate improvement to the NBA product this season. So what do you guys think? Is there more that the league office needs to do in order to eliminate flopping? Or do you believe they've already done all they can do? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thanks for watching as always. Make sure to like and subscribe for more basketball content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.